It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. So glad to also welcome back. We have Megan Barth, the co-chair of Red Wave America PAC and the Media Equality Project, national spokeswoman for MediaEqualizer.com. Megan, good morning.
Good morning, and my own personal blog is ReaganBabe.com. Reagan as in Ronald, Babe as in Ruth.
That's right. Yeah. ReaganBabe.com. So, Megan, let's talk a little bit about this Caravan situation. I mean, it was, remember the media said the Caravan was a myth? I mean, SNL made fun of the coverage of it. It was one of the reasons Jim Acosta got thrown out, and got his press pass revoked, and now all of a sudden we have the liberals complaining that tear gas was used. What's your reaction?
Well, I think the liberals need a little reminder that actually Barack Obama also used tear gas against the invaders that are trying to breach our border illegally. And I think it's really important that we use the term invaders because the left doesn't want us to. And when you see the invaders waving their oppressor's flag, you have to ask yourself the question, if they were politically oppressed, if they were fearing for their life due to political violence or persecution, why, and they're seeking asylum, why would they be waving their oppressor's flag?
That's an excellent question. I mean, and you would think if they really wanted in, they would, bring the American flag. That would at least generate a lot of sympathy, towards people. I still don't think they would be allowed in, or they should be allowed in, but at least people would be maybe a little bit more sympathetic to the situation.
Well, yes, and we probably would be a little bit more sympathetic not only if they were waving the American flag, but if they weren't throwing projectiles and rocks at our border patrol.
That seems reasonable. I mean, and that's the whole problem here is that we have, people who can't see the hypocrisy of, the fact that they lock their doors at night. Wealthy celebrities that are so outraged at this, they have walls that surround their mansion, and yet we're just supposed to let people come in this country and not check and make sure, who they are and control the process. I mean, it's preposterous, and it's something that countries have done since countries existed, and they're asking us to just ignore it because why? Is it because of the votes, the potential Democrat votes, or is it because they're trying to, overwhelm the system? I mean, what do you think the goal of all this is, Megan?
Well, I think it's both, and I'm glad that you brought up overwhelm the system because I have, since the beginning, nicknamed this caravan, if you will, the Cloward Piven Caravan. And in order to understand the left, you need to understand Cloward Piven. And Cloward Piven is a duo out of Chicago, communists. Many communists come out of Chicago. Frank Marshall Davis, who is the mentor of Barack Obama. And Cloward Piven created this theory, if you will, and it's called Cloward Piven. And what that means is that in order to overthrow the capitalist system, you create or you use a series of crises in succession in order to break the system in order to usher in socialism. And so when you look at this chaos at the border with this Cloward Piven Caravan, there are over 5,000 of these invaders. And even the Tijuana mayor and the Tijuana residents are already feeling overwhelmed. As many of them have said on camera, they agree with Trump. They want Mexico to secure its own borders. They want Mexico to send these invaders back. And they have enough problems of their own without letting in 5,500, 6,000 more people into their own system. And so when Barack Obama told us back in 2008 that he was only 4 days from the fundamental transformation of this country, I think most of us realized that he was not talking about the fundamental he wasn't going to fundamentally transform this country into a laissez-faire, free market capitalist system. No. He was going to fundamentally transform this country into a socialist system, and that is why the Democrats immediately, in their first grasp of power, ushered in Obamacare without a single Republican vote. And so when we look at the demographics, the cross-section of this Cloward Piven Caravan, the 5,000 people, they're not rocket scientists. They're not going to split the next atom. They aren't going to invent the next widget. They are all millennial-aged men waving the Honduran flag, 95% of them, and the other 5% are women and children. And so the Democrats believe if they can create more dependency on the system, then they can usher in the Cloward-Piven model that they all long for.
I'm glad you mentioned the 95% makeup, being male. Of course, the photo that was being circulated, you have the woman running from the tear gas. Her kids are in diapers. They don't have any shoes on. If you actually look over her right shoulder, you can see another cameraman back there, though, actually, photographing all of this stuff, in the dangerous tear gas zone. I'm not saying, we have the Border Patrol agent saying, look, they were pushing women and children to the front, and then they started throwing the projectiles. I mean, they knew what they were trying to do. I don't think we need to assume, and you feel free to disagree with me, Megan, we need to assume that these people are willing to use the press because they know the press agrees with them, to make this look like a humanitarian crisis.
Well, and the press is using them. It's a two-way street. And what kind of woman, mother, drags her two children barefoot 1,000 miles through a narco-controlled state in violent conditions, and then, but if this woman was seeking asylum and she had two toddlers, she would have stopped at the very first country that offered her asylum, which was Mexico. Mexico offered all of these people a chance at asylum. They offered them food, they offered them shelter, they offered them opportunity, and they offered them safety. And the entire caravan, or these invaders, these supposed asylum seekers, says, no, we don't want asylum in your country, even though it's the first country we've gotten to. We're going to traverse and break your country's laws in order to break America's laws. We would like to invade their border. Thank you very much.
It's just it's unbelievable. When you put it like that, and also you would wonder. I mean, did they really walk 1,000 miles barefoot? I mean, did that really happen?
Well, we saw, and I saw pictures of and it was widely published. And I don't remember where. However, they had police escorts through Mexico. They had trucks offering them rides. They were given rides by a variety of different resources. And one thing I must point out is that with the left, you must always follow the money because that's where the root of the left is the money. And so we know that Pueblos Sin Fronteras, which is a radical open borders leftist group, 501c3, attached to a much larger 501c3, is offering aid, and they are abetting this invasion. They are accompanying many of the invaders. They're offering legal advice. And so I look at that and I say, geez, you are aiding and abetting a criminal. That's a crime. And I also look at that and say, if there is an exchange of money, if the 501c3s are somehow getting money or providing money in exchange for something else, that is called human trafficking as well. And so we really need, from a legal standpoint, look at these radical open border 501c3s. On the very surface, I believe they are breaking our laws because they are aiding and abetting criminal behavior.
Last question. We're talking with Megan Barth. You can find out more at her blog, reaganbabe.com. She's from the Media Equalizer project. The border wall funding. Have you heard any information about that? I mean, they're talking about maybe there was some talk about actually getting some border wall funding. What are your thoughts on that process?
Well, I support President Trump's, I believe, latest statement that he would shut down the government if there is no funding before we transfer the gavel to Nancy Pelosi. This is about safety, security, and sovereignty. But this is what the Democrats want. This isn't some far radical left. I mean, the funders and the movers of these people are radical leftists, but radical leftists are very mainstream when it comes to being within and supporting the Democrat Party. Nancy Pelosi is a radical leftist, even though she pretends to be more of a moderate, and that she can work across the aisles. I think it's David Horowitz that says inside every progressive is a totalitarian screaming to get out. When you look at Nancy Pelosi, I'm sure she wanted to be a socialist when she was growing up and getting her political chops, but it wasn't in vogue at the time.
Yeah, and there's a lot more money to be made off of insider trading.
Yes, exactly. And so I say shut it down. And if we need to close the border for an indefinite amount of time until Mexico gets their act together and takes these people and ships them back on a bus, train, car, or a donkey, I really don't care. That's what needs to happen.
Megan Barth, we always appreciate it. Thank you so much for spending time with us this morning.
Anytime, Paul. Thank you.
Okay. Megan Barth, everybody. Again, Reagan@babe.com, as well as the Media Equalizer.